which means that he was not getting paid from September of 2020 all the way to December of 2021. So those 15 months, what the heck was he doing? Okay, so Logan Paul, our favorite forest vlogger, decided to respond to some of the allegations that were made by George Janko, who used to be his co-host back in the days. And we're gonna have to take a look at some of the things that he said, because his response, although it seems that to most people, at least from his Twitter replies, it seems that most people think that he cooked. Logan has the W on this one. Very mature handling of the situation, definitely in a higher echelon. Seems like Logan refuted all claims and took the W on this one. Majority of people, at least from the looks of it, seem to completely misunderstood and missed the ball on this one. So we're gonna take a look at some of the things that were happening and see how his response is actually not as good as it seems. So first, let's take a look at his initial response.
I had to start my own show because we're not making money on this show, and I'm getting pushed out.
You made money on the show.
I can show you my books. I was spending 10 G's a month being on the show.
All right, let's talk about this. Obviously, I wasn't on the podcast to represent myself, so I'd like to clarify a few things that were said. As well as having his own credit card, all expenses related to the show were paid for, including all travel and lodging. Obviously, George's total reimbursement came out to $20,000, 317 cents. I'd love to see any books that show otherwise. Spending $120,000 a year to be on a show is a little confusing.
So he's saying spending $120,000 to be on a show is confusing. There's a couple of things that he's being disingenuous about that we need to pay very close attention to. George did not say that he was spending $120,000 to be on the show throughout his entire time at the show. The spending that was happening on George's end were for a certain amount of time, and that's still logically plausible, but we're gonna get more to this later on, so pay attention.
The guy who's sending us screenshots of $11 million a week that he's making.
This statement is so crazy that it's almost laughable. That would mean I'm making $572 million a year. I'm nowhere near that. What happened was Prime had a very successful month. I think we did like 60 to 70 million, and I sent it to our group chat because I was proud of the business. I was stoked to show the boys, and I think George maybe misinterpreted that as like my personal income.
Such a non-point. Nobody said he was making $10 million a week every single week of his life. There was a point in time where he sent a screenshot and he's literally showing it. He said Prime had a very good month. He sent a screenshot of the revenue that they were having, which, by the way, he gets a portion of. So he agreeing to the fact that he did send a screenshot, and he's agreeing to the fact that he did in fact to make X amount of millions of dollars. That's still logically consistent with what George said. So this is not a refutation. He was not making this much money the whole time. He made that much at a certain point in time. That's all George said. And he sent the screenshot, so what's the problem here?
Show hit rock bottom and we weren't getting paid. I was getting paid $5,000 a month.
But you did make a sizable amount of money on the show.
And by the way, always
like,
grateful. I was always grateful.
Like that?
Yeah, I don't like to talk about money.
I know he doesn't want to talk money. I know he believes it out, but George made $317,000 in the 15 months that he got paid for on Impulsive. So
pay close attention, because this is the most important thing. I mentioned earlier that George started working at the show around September of 2020. Look when the payment starts. It starts on December 2021 and it goes on to March of 2023, which is the time he left the show. His last episode on the show was in fact in March of 2023, which means that he was not getting paid from September of 2020 all the way to December of 2021. So those 15 months, what the heck was he doing? He was on the show for a year and a half almost, right? 15 months. What was happening during that time? He was not getting paid. So what he said before about spending $10,000 a month is plausible. It's possible that he was spending that much money.
$317,000 in the 15 months that he got paid for on.
Pay close attention to the fact that he says for the 15 months he got paid for. He himself knows that he can't make the claim that this guy was getting paid throughout the whole time he was there. He only got paid for the 15 months that he was there, which is the last 15 months. And the first 15, he was not getting paid, but he was part of the show, doing all these things that he's saying that he's doing. And during these 15 months, does he not have expenses? Does he not have bills? He probably has other things that he has to worry about, other things that he has to juggle. But saying that he had to spend that much money to be on the show is not crazy, because he wasn't getting paid for almost a year and a half.
Work requirements consisted of about 3 days a month, 3 hours each day, traveling the world, networking, and meeting some of the coolest people ever. It comes out to about $2,300 per hour, and he also had 10% equity of the entire show.
Which, by the way, he says that he's actually grateful for. So nobody's saying, he never claimed that he didn't make any money. He said for some period of time, I had to spend X amount of money to be on the show.
Not you, not Caleb, not Kevin, not Dylan. Nobody called me when I got fired.
George did not get fired. He quit. I'll touch on that in a second. But after he quit, I called him frequently. I reached out. I wanted to reconcile the friendship. I invited him to my birthday party and WrestleMania and even my ranch a few weeks later. He chose not to come. He also unfollowed all the people he mentioned on Instagram, which is maybe why they didn't call him. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but he still does not follow them.
This makes it look like Logan was the good guy and George was the asshole. But if you watch the actual interview, you will know the kind of words that they both exchanged. They've said some seriously bad things to each other, which means George was not at a point where he wanted to reconcile with him. So this may be true. This interaction probably did happen, but George did not want to reconcile with him, and you can't force that to happen. He's not an asshole for not wanting to be with this guy anymore, given the things that he's being accused of.
And not only was I controlled and pushed around on impulsive, but then Logan's making calls and directing my show. He told me that I couldn't take Celsius.
So this is the big one. Making calls, trying to make it seem like I wanted to control his show is absolutely ridiculous. As you can see right here, I was like, hey, we got to get you Prime because I saw him drinking our competitor, and he told me to call him. He was filming my reaction to tell me he took a deal with a competitor. I told him, please don't film. Like, I'd like to talk about this. I hope you're joking, by the way. The truth is, I thought it was a bad look that my best friend and co-host took a brand deal with our competitor without consulting me, asking me, giving us even a chance to match it before he signed the deal, because the audience that he's building, at least at the time, on his own podcast was being funneled directly from the podcast that I was building with him. I said, hey dude, I understand you need to make money. The entire text is right here that I sent him after our conversation, because I did understand his position if he needed to make money, but I thought it was also a little odd because he did make $317,000 in 15 months. Regardless, I did tell him I can't have him on impulsive if he's going to take the deal with the competitor, but if after he makes the money he wants to come back to the podcast, he's more than welcome.
This is true only if you look at it from Logan's point of view. If you look at what George actually said, he mentions a point that this guy conveniently did not include, which talks exactly about why George ended up having to leave. Because George literally said, could you match something? Give me half of what George... Actually, you know what? I'll just sit in George's response to this whole thing and what he actually said in his own video.
Listen, man, like, I will take half the deal that Celsius gives me. Half. If you want to put it on the table for my show, a quarter, work with me. He says, I won't pay you a dime. You're here because of me. And then I said, well, what do you want me to do for my bills, bro? I got no money. And he says, go have your rich dad pay for it.
Okay, you see? So George literally says that he wanted to work with him. He said, okay, fine. I'm not gonna, he agrees that it does look bad if your co-host is out promoting a competitor. So what he said is, okay, fine. I won't take the entire deal. I could like try to find some middle ground. Let's work it out. And then what did Logan say? Allegedly,
I won't pay you a dime. You're here because of me.
You're here because of me. I own you, essentially. So why in the hell would he stay in the show if the guy's talking to him like that?
You say that the way that you handled it from a word standpoint was mature, acceptable?
What did I say? That I beat the fucking brakes off of him?
Correct.
If he was in front of me, I would have swung at him.
But that's what I'm trying to say. We were at a point where no one was speaking properly to each other. And
So you see, this part right here shows exactly why their relationship was not reconcilable and why Logan was trying to reach out to him, trying to make it look like he's the good guy who wants to amend things. But meanwhile, the concept that they said to each other, their relationship was over. There is no coming back from this. By the way, leave a like if you're enjoying this and subscribe to the channel. It helps.
Hey man, where you're at, there's no room for you to grow. They won't let you grow. They will not let you grow.
I thought saying that to Mike was a little crazy. He's grown a lot. He has 2.7 million subscribers since we met. He's a multimillionaire, a best-selling author. I tried as much as I could to help him get into those positions, and it's not entirely because of me. Mike is a phenom in his own right, and he capitalized on the platform that I gave him, which is awesome. Just like George is doing now. But if that's not growth, like what is?
Okay, when he said growth, you could watch the podcast again. He was talking about personal growth in character and things of that sort. But since Logan only thinks in money and monetary value, he can't think of people growing any other way.
But now I have confidence. Now I could stand on my own show. I have my own finance. I have my own fiance. I have my own life.
Right.
That's why when I sit here and have these conversations with you, this is the best version of me because I went through the fire. I want to sit with you and say, bro, like, you think that you're done growing. You're not. You have so much more to give, because those moments that we would have in the hotel rooms by ourselves, those were us. You saw the version of me that everybody sees now behind closed doors. I saw that version of you.
Yeah,
and I'm excited to show that version to other people. So I could get behind saying, yeah, that's my friend Mike. I'm really excited that we're friends.
So he's talking about personal growth, growing as an individual, not as a content creator or anything of that sort. But Logan just can't think of any type of growth except the monetary one.
There's a lot more. I'm not going to get into it, but this isn't to say, by the way, that I didn't fuck up along the way. I did. I should not have mocked his beliefs. I apologize for that. I should have stuck up for him with Bobby Lee, and I definitely should have had his back more like a friend. There's a lot of things I would have done differently, but here we are. It saddens me that our story has unfolded this way. I wish him nothing but health, wealth, happiness, all the success that he wants, and I hope that one day we can sit down and have a relationship and a conversation.
So if you look at the very end of it, he just says, oh yeah, you know, I've handled basically all the major points, and when it comes down to Bobby Lee, which by the way is the biggest point of the entire thing, oh yeah, you know, I should have handled it differently. This is bad. I wish things didn't come this way. Dude, your co-host was assaulted in your show, and what you did was cut out the part where he gets assaulted, not once, not twice, multiple times allegedly, and you did nothing about it. Your co-host, your third co-host, who's on a show, who's being interviewed by George, admits that things should have been handled differently, and that for some reason, and this is the justification for it, they prioritize the guest, protecting the guest. What did he say?
We have numerous times on the show, which I'm sure a number of shows do, caught things that we believe will protect the integrity or reputation of the guest.
What about your co-host, who you know and actually is a friend of yours? You're gonna throw him under the bus because some random dude who you're interviewing is coming into the show and he's assaulting him in front of you, and you're gonna do nothing about it? As a matter of fact, they encouraged it, they laughed at it, and then they stitched out the part where that have happened to him. And then afterwards, when he goes crazy about it, they don't just any of that, and then he just says the minor points, which, by the way, he completely took out of context. And at the very end just says we should all be better friends, and I wish things didn't turn out this way. You did that. You made things turn out this way. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this whole thing?